Step into the light where the wild ones roam, where the heart speaks loud, calling this place home. We break the rules, we paint the sky, ridiculously you. We were born to fly. Ooh, it's ridiculously you.
Hey everyone, this is Julie May with the Ridiculously You podcast, and today we have Andrea Mondoux, who is a 5-time best-selling author. She's got a new book coming out that I'm going to be telling you about. She's a podcast host, she's a speaker, she's the founder of Balance and Bliss, but more than that, she's like a transformational coach who knows what it feels to be stuck in burnout, perfectionism, the pressures of diet culture. Y'all know what I feel about diet culture. She's walked that road, questioned everything, and came to the other side, rewriting her own story with power and clarity and like ridiculous joy. She's quirky and wildly human, and I am excited to share more of Andrea with you. So everyone, welcome Andrea.
Oh my gosh, that's such a fun introduction. So I didn't say this to you earlier, but I haven't done a podcast interview in forever. And just sitting here right now, I'm like, oh my gosh, I miss this. Like, this is just so great and so fun. I love to chat and I love to learn about new people and serve and share. And so I feel like we're going to have such a good conversation today.
I'm excited. I'm excited. Okay, I want to get back in. Let's like go back to beginning lands before you were like transformational coach, all this 5-time best-selling author. Before all of that, tell me about the life in the before land and what led you to this kind of work.
Okay. So I'm 18 years old. I am like, what am I gonna do with my life after high school? You know, that like big question that we ask someone so young in life. It's like, what do you want to do? And at that time, I knew that I innately knew that I liked to help people and like to serve. I didn't quite have that language for it, but I just knew that I've always liked that confidant for people. And so I went into social services. And I studied for 2 years and then I worked frontline in mental health. I worked with seniors. I worked with kids who had autism. I worked for a charity for 10 years. And I have always loved to help people. Now, my first kind of introduction into personal growth, which I would say that's like the category of the world that I am in now, was in college. One of my instructors said to us, she said, in order to help people unpack their shit, you have to unpack your own. And that really, really stuck with me because it's like if you are going to kind of make your way through this world helping others, there is an element of self-discovery that's really important for you. So I did it. I was in the field, and then I got pregnant with my first child, and it was a girl. And at that time, I found myself really focused on getting back to my pre-baby body. And of course, this is like the messaging, right? And that we've like all been conditioned to subscribe to without knowing it of like, okay, have a baby, but like don't look like you have, and all of the pressures that come along with that. And I had been on my own weight loss journey, and I had achieved the number on the scale that I was striving towards. And again, didn't know it at the time. Like I was happy about that, but there was still a lot like missing inside that I hadn't even considered exploring. So I have my daughter. I'm focused on getting my pre-baby body back, but I'm also like starting to reevaluate everything. When you have like a big life shift like that, it's like, okay, what did I grow up thinking? How was my childhood? What kind of childhood do I want to create for my daughter? I mean, this is also just like in my introspective nature. Maybe everybody doesn't necessarily think this way, but it's all part of how I got to this place where I'm at now. And so I'm evaluating the way that I speak to myself, the things that I believe about myself as a woman in the world, and how I want to portray that to my daughter. And at the same time was kind of like understanding that I didn't really want to be so connected to like how my body looked and like what that meant. And so then I decided I wanted to do a holistic health coaching certification because I also was like, the emotional labor of social work is so heavy. And I was like, I want to have enough like for my family when at the end of the day, you know? And so fast forward 2018, I graduated from my online certification, which I did while working full time with a 1 year old in like 10 months. It was crazy, but I was just so determined. And then I launched my coaching business, which started as, the importance of what you eat and how you move your body, because those two things do really support our vessel. But it very quickly then morphed into where I am now, and it's helping women to actually, beneath the surface of like the desired weight loss, it's like, what are the stories that you're telling yourself every day about what you're capable of, what you should be doing versus what you want to be doing? How often are we living for other people and abandoning ourselves in the process? And so now that is really the basis of the work that I do, is like helping women to rewrite that inner narrative, take back their own power and live in like an aligned, purposeful way that actually just feels good for them and no one else.
I love that. So when you're working with these women, how do they even know what aligned feels like or what's best for them? Or because I talk to so many people who are so lost in the land. A lot of times it does happen, like when you have kids and stuff, but they're so lost in the land of, these are the things I have to do to serve everyone else, to make sure the kids are taken care of, to make sure work got done and house got done and kids got done, that like they don't
Mhm.
even remember what they like anymore. They don't even remember who they were in the before lands or who they could be now. How do you help them even find those things sometimes?
Oh my gosh, this is such a good question because part of the what I struggled with when I was in social work and now what I love about coaching is that oftentimes I worked with people who are mandated to work with me. So it's like their worker, somebody told them they have to work on this thing in order to keep their housing or in order to live independently or whatever it is. And so I was often like pushing people who didn't really want to do the work anyway. And so as a coach, of course, people approach you when they feel a little bit of like, they're not sure what it is, but they just don't feel as fulfilled as they thought they would, checking off all of the boxes. Or they have been fulfilled, but all of a sudden they're just feeling restless and they're feeling unsure and they're like, they might be watching my content or even anybody else's content in the world and they're like curious about what that could mean for them or what that could look like. And so when I'm talking to somebody who is like at the beginning stages of this journey where they're like feeling all of those, like they're like, I don't know if this feels enough for me, or I don't know if I feel truly happy and fulfilled. I like to ask the question, and I actually have taken this with me literally from college. It's like if I were to you paint a picture, or if I had a magic wand, or if you could create your ideal life, what would that look like? And at first people might say like, I don't even know what that looks like. And it's like, okay, but what if you did know? Let's imagine, let's pretend, what if you did know? Because we're so used to blocking ourselves from dreaming, from leaning into like something that's just for us and not for other people. So sometimes it's actually hard to answer that question and really get curious about what that could be. But once I say, okay, what if you did know what that looked like? Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I would paint again, or I would, insert the whatever the thing is. And then once you have this, like, where I want to be, then you can almost reverse engineer that of like, okay, what's like a small, I'm really big on like small micro steps that can get you to where you want to be. Because if we do this giant overhaul of like, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to leave my partner and I'm going to drop all my friends because everything sucks. It's not going to feel very good and it's not going to be sustainable either. And so it's like let's start getting curious about like the small shifts that we can make. And a lot of the work that I do is focused on what goes on up here. Because a lot of us forget that what goes on up here dictates and creates our entire reality. We have like tens of thousands of thoughts in a day. Most of them are unconscious, but they are the script, the dialogue, the everything that dictates our life experience. And so the first step, once we create like, okay, that's cool. What could that look like? What would I love to see for my life? It's like, let's start tuning inward and paying attention to what we're saying to ourselves when something gets hard. Is it like, oh, you can't do this anyway? What's the point in trying? Or is it like, okay, this is probably hard because I've never done this before? Getting curious about what's going on inside, creating an awareness, that awareness is everything. And then all the dominoes over a period of time can slowly fall into place to create a different reality.
I love seeing the world with curiosity. It's one of the things I do with my coaching clients all the time. It's like if we could see this through the eyes of I'm curious instead of the shoulds or why isn't it this way or like the blame, shame, guilt game. Like if you can just like see things through the eyes of curiosity, I think that is one of the biggest breakthroughs people can have about their life. But there's steps you need to take in order to get from I don't think I have power because I should do this and I should do that. And motherhood needs to look like this. And according to like the constructs of society, I should do all of these things into I am the creator of my life. I get to create something, even if it looks unconventional. I'm going to see something that would have been a failure in the past with I'm curious to see why the reaction looked like this and learn from it and grow from it. How do you think, like, what are your biggest steps to tell people and work with people to get from shoulds and the constraints of like societal expectations into like creative of their life land and seeing with curiosity? Because that can be a big shift for people.
It is a big shift. And like it's also an ongoing one. Like there's no final destination, right? I like to say that I am a consistent student of myself. And everybody should really be a student of themselves because as we're moving through seasons, as we're going through different stages of our lives or different things are going on in our lives, we respond, we react, we show up differently. And all of those really are like versions of ourselves under different um, contexts or situations or scenarios. But the method that, like the roadmap that I like to kind of take my clients on actually is Embody. So it kind of makes sense that it's in the title of the next book that's coming out. But it's almost like a framework of like we move through these pieces, which kind of gets you to closer, not even to, but closer to that version of yourself, that higher self that is no longer subscribing to this programming and is actually kind of working in this way. So embody really quickly stands for, so the E is to elevate your awareness, which we kind of talked about already. The M is about meeting yourself honestly, because it's not easy to explore some of the ways that we show up in situations or how we respond or how we even think about ourselves. For me, a big story that I had for the longest time was that people don't like me. People will always look for a way to leave me, and also that nobody cared what I had to say and nobody liked having me around. And so, understanding where that came from and how that showed up in so many places in my life, I really needed to take an honest look at that so that I could then like face it and look for evidence of a different story than that one. So, meeting yourself honestly. B is for building self-trust. And self-trust is not something that we are taught in school. It's not even something that's really, you can't like take a course on building self-trust, you know? It's like you can maybe learn some of the foundations, but you learn that by actually experiencing and living life outside of your comfort zone, especially. The O stands for owning your voice and owning your power. So in your life, standing up for yourself in friendships, relationships, asking for what you need, all of these components that again help us to live in that more aligned experience. What am I at? D, deepen the connection to yourself. So again, so many of us living on autopilot, really disconnected from what our needs are and what our desires are and abandoning ourselves to say yes to everybody else for me so that people don't have a reason to not like me. I was putting myself out left, right, and center just to give people a reason to never give people a reason to not like me. And that was not serving me at all. And the last piece of that is the why, which is when you can move through all of these pieces, is when you reach your next level. And your next level is whatever you see that as. So when I'm working with a client, it's like understanding where you want to go, right? Painting that picture and moving you closer to that place until something else happens and then you need to regrow again. Like that's why I say it's a long-term, lifelong journey that we get to be on.
So, so the name of your next book, we've alluded to it a few different times, but it's Embody Bliss. So you're going to be talking about that whole embody situation in this book and how it creates joy within you. And that's Embody Bliss, break free from the shoulds, which we just talked about, and move more into joy. Tell us about this book. When is it coming out? Did it already come out? Tell us more about the book.
Yeah, so I've actually been writing this book since August 2023. So it's been a while. And it will be coming out March 11th, 2026. So we are like ramping up the last kind of interior of the book. I'm really excited to see it in layout. It has been a labor of love over the last couple of years. I launched my first book in 2020, and it was the middle of the pandemic. I had a very, very sad virtual book launch party. It was horrible. And that book was kind of like what I had learned up until that point. And that book is called You Actually Can Do This, Achieving a Healthy Lifestyle in Spite of Yourself, which it's like a time capsule of where I was at that time. This book is like you said, it does kind of pull in all the elements of that framework. But this is more of a memoir style guide. So every chapter is a different topic. The relationship that you have with yourself, the relationship with others, the power of thought work, the importance of going outside and being in nature to infuse you with like creativity and wonder and awe, which is something that in our hustle culture we're so far from. The importance of play and joy and laughter and how that supports you on such a cellular level. So these are the kinds of boundaries. Oh, damn, is there a good chapter about boundaries in that book? But more than just like, here, you should do this and this and this. It's like, here's how this has shown up for me. Here is a plethora of stories. I love to storytell about how this has shown up for me so that people who read it can see themselves in those stories and really see how they can start to integrate these concepts as their own truth. And beyond just the book, because I love to serve and creating impact is such a deep rooted value for me. I've actually also created audio integrations. So in the book, there will be a QR code to get these things you can listen to in the car, in your AirPods, when you're getting ready, whenever you want to help you further integrate what you're learning, so that this really can be like it's like I want people to be like before Embody Bliss and after I read Embody Bliss. It's like this is what my life is like now. And so I have poured my heart and soul, all of my knowledge into this book, and I'm so excited for it to be out in the world.
So tell us more about these QR codes and like how what is an integration? Explain this to people. So they have the words on the page, they're reading it, they're doing the audible book, whatever we're doing, and they get to the QR codes and they get to an integration. What is an integration?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it's kind of similar to like a guided meditation that you might
Mhm.
listen to, or like a visualization. You go onto Spotify and you're like 10-minute meditation to fall asleep. That's me. I love listening to like fall asleep meditation voices in my ears until it skips to another song and jolts me out of my sleep. Oh my God, that happens so often. Anyhow, so yeah, it'll be a little QR code in the book, and then you'll literally, it's so cool. I love technology. You scan it with your phone, it will take you right to a web page that has all of the audio files right there corresponding with each chapter. So there's one for each chapter. And then you just hit play, and then it will magically, by the power of the internet, play for you to take what. Because here's the thing. I don't know about you or anybody who's listening to this. I'm like reading a really good book, a person like especially one in the self-help enrichment realm, and I'm like, oh, that was such good stuff. I'm like, I want to remember that and that. And then I close the book and I put it back on my shelf and I'm like it's gone. And I want people to really have shifts and changes. And I mean, I can't take responsibility over someone else's change, right? We're all in charge of our own transformation, but I can provide people with as many tools as I can to make sure that that really happens for them in a big way. And so that's what these are meant to do is they're just like easy free things you can grab and listen to over and over and over.
What do you think the biggest shifts you've seen in your life are because you've taken on this embodied philosophy? What are the biggest shifts you see in your life?
I think that, and sometimes this is both a blessing and a curse, but I think that the biggest shift that I've seen is that I am always analyzing not only like the interactions that I have with other people, but also myself. Like, why am I responding in that way? Why is that coming up for me? Every single human being on this planet is going to have negative self-talk forever. It is just a part of the human experience. It's a part of being human. However, just because it's always going to be there doesn't mean you have to necessarily listen to it. So for me, I'll give you a really recent example. So I'm planning this book launch event, and I'm like, it's not going to be on Zoom. I think because I was robbed the first time, I have like big plans for the one that I want to see in March. And I was sitting down with my event planner last week. And she was asking me questions. She's like, "Okay, paint a picture for me. Like, what do you want to see for this event?" And I was listing things off, but then I was immediately blocking myself of like, "Oh, but that feels like a lot of work," or like, "Oh, I don't really know like where that's going to come from or whatever." And she's kind of like looking at me, and I was like, "Listen, I know." I was like, "I just have to tell you, I've been feeling a lot of overwhelm these last 2 weeks. My kids have been sick. I've been like in the land of sick people. I was sick. I've been like kind of pulled in all these different directions. And as somebody who craves routine in my alone time, when I'm thrown off kilter like that, I find that my negative self-talk is louder. And so having the awareness to be like, okay, listen, I'm really overwhelmed right now. I hear it, but I'm not going to let it dictate me still continuing to move forward with planning this book launch. And so in situations all the time now, my poor partner, he's like, "Oh my gosh, Andrea," because I'm like evaluating everything and myself. I think I showed up that way because, even with my
Yeah.
kids too. But it's just afforded me so much insight and so much. You were talking earlier about like being able to be the creator of your own life. And it's like, I am not a slave to my thoughts or my inner dialogue or anything else anymore. If something doesn't feel right with me, I have no problem just saying it doesn't. Whether it is in a workplace setting, whether it is in a friendship or whatever it is, there's a way to do that nicely and politely and with kindness, of course, but you don't have to not say something and abandon yourself instead, you know? And so it's just like it's just in every thing that I do now. It's like I can't remember what it was like. Or sorry, I can, but I can't believe that I used to be somebody who was so worried, like would just bend over backwards and like just constantly I used to be somebody who maybe there's people that can resonate with this as well. I would be like seeing groups of friends hang out, and I'm like, why didn't I get invited to that? Of course they didn't invite me. Like, why would they want to invite me? Or really like holding on so tight to friendships because I mean, I don't even really know why. I just felt like I had to. Like I just have had this really, really deep rooted fear of abandonment that came from my childhood. I have now understood. And and now it's like I don't put so much pressure on like holding tight to connections or holding tight to all of these things. I'm just like, whatever's going to happen will happen, you know? And it's like, it's just, there's so much freedom in that, in just kind of like letting what's meant to happen happen and being content and okay with that.
I love that. It's such an interesting journey to get to that point. But when you can see the world with curiosity, when you can go, it doesn't, we have no contract that says I have to be friends with this person for the rest of my life because we like the same color blue in third grade.
I know. I
Somewhere
know.
we've thought all along that we have to hold all of these things forever, even when you shift, they shift, and things naturally start to come to a separation or a different direction. And it's like, no, that's what's going to serve everyone best. It's going to be beautiful. Just trust me, it's going to be
Yeah,
okay,
and
right?
it's okay and it doesn't like we make a lot of things that happen on the exterior mean something about us, about our worth and our value and our place or our belonging. And oftentimes it's actually not about us or it's serving us, in like the long run that maybe we can't see that yet, but really just like leaning into that trust that what's meant to happen will happen in the way that it's supposed to has been honestly really powerful for me. And that's been a great lesson that I can like teach my kids too. My daughter is in grade 5 now. And this summer, all summer, she was like, I really hope that I get to be in the same class as my friends. And like at the end of the school year last year, they got to write on a piece of paper who they wanted to be in the same class with. And she's like, we all wrote each other down. And so all summer, she's like waiting to find out about her classroom placement. And like a couple days before school, we found out her classroom placement. Her teacher, I'm like messaging her friends' moms, like, anyway, long story short, she was alone. She didn't have, all of her friends were in the same class except for her. And she was upset. And I was upset for her because I was like, I went back into that like inner child in me, that like grade 5 kid who's like, none of my friends are going to be in class with me. And so she had a cry about it. And, we like sat with, this is a whole other thing that we didn't even touch on, but we just sat with like the feeling of that, of like, oh man, that really sucks. That really sucks that we're not going to be with our friends. And then I said, like, there's got to be a lesson in here somewhere, kiddo. Like there's got to be a reason for why this is happening and then we just like talked through, some of that stuff and then we kind of moved forward from it and she felt better going into the school year this year, just having like sat through that and worked through that and not forcing her to push her feelings about it aside and just ignore it. And that's kind of just like the way that I operate with my kids all the time and myself, honestly.
That's such a great gift because I think as kids, so many times we get told to push our feelings aside. It's like, suck it up, you're going to be okay, you're fine, you're fine. We get kind of almost taught, at least I did. I should not say the collective we, but like I did when I was a kid, it was like, if you're crying, I will give you something to cry about. Like,
Yeah.
suck it up, you're going to be okay. And you just like get taught to just shove and shove and shove your feelings down until you get to be an adult. And all of a
Mhm.
sudden they want to explode everywhere and they're not healthy. But if you can sit in the emotion, it's like this beautiful journey that you just expressed. If you can sit in the emotion, be like, it's okay that we're sad for about this.
Mhm.
Let's feel the sad about it for a minute, and
Yeah.
then let's talk about how moving through it and into a point of curiosity. If I'm curious to see what's going to happen next in this school year, I'm curious to see how this serves us.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what interesting new friendships develop. I'm curious to see how this helps you in these different ways. I think
Mhm.
it's, if you can teach your kids that, it's a massive service to them because
Yeah, actually,
yeah.
one of the chapters in my book is called "Your Emotions Deserve a Seat at the Table," and
Yeah.
my older daughter thought that I should add, "And they deserve spaghetti and meatballs as well." But it's like I mean, we are living in a society with a lot of unhealed people who don't allow themselves to feel negative emotions, not even negative, but like emotions that feel uncomfy and emotions that just like aren't maybe welcomed, right? They were raised and like you don't show these types of emotions. And we've also been like conditioned to feel a bit of shame about being like overjoyed or excited or proud or celebrating ourselves. And like all of these emotions need to be felt through and moved through. And then once they are, none of them are permanent. The happy ones and the sad ones, they don't last. And so when we can sit in them, feel them, see why they're coming up for us, then we can just move forward. And our bodies thank us a lot more for that than holding on to every single emotion. And then we're like experiencing chronic stress and we're like experiencing muscle aches, like all of it. We're so connected, mind, body, soul, spirit, all of it. And we're just operating as like a physical vessel in the world in a lot of capacities and spaces. Probably not in this one, if people are listening to your show. But yeah, there's just like emotions need to be felt, and they're all welcome in my opinion.
Do you feel like there's anything about getting stuck in the emotion? Like, I've seen people who get permission to have the emotion and then they kind of get stuck there. It's like, oh, you have permission to be sad. And then they feel sad, and then they feel sadder, and then they feel sadder, and then they feel sadder. And then all of a sudden, they've swirled down this tube into they don't know how to get out of sad.
Mm. Well, that's an interesting question because what you're making me think of is last year we had to say goodbye to our dog, and it was devastating. Like I was devastated. I was crushed, and I was sad for I could cry right now, actually. I was sad for a very long time, and I felt like I was being sad for too long. I was like, how, like, people are going to think, like, why am I still sad about my dog dying? Because some people just don't get it. And so I bring this story up because I think that there's really no timeline necessarily to feel a particular emotion, like, especially sadness. Um, but I do believe that there is a period of time that it's like, listen, let's feel it. And then like we do have to move forward. And it's not to discount that feeling that it can't still be there. Like duality can exist in a lot of places and spaces, especially when it comes to emotion. So it's like, I feel this, I can be really sad about this, and I can also laugh about this thing. Or I can feel really sad and still take care of myself in the best way that I can. Maybe that is through compassion, like giving myself a little bit of grace. Whatever that looks like, I think that fundamentally, the most important thing is that we are taking care of ourselves and our mind and our bodies in the best way that we can. And so, sitting in deep sadness for months and months and months and not doing things that light us up or that bring us joy or whatever, just like is just a disservice to ourselves. So, I don't know if I really answered that question necessarily, but I feel like every decision that we make for ourselves, or at least this is how I try and operate and how I teach my kids, is like everything we decide to do should come from a place of love for ourselves and serving ourselves. And that's not selfish to think about ourselves in that way. And so, sitting like holding up in our house for months, not seeing anybody, not going out and doing anything, like that's not good for our spirit. And sometimes there is an element of like pushing yourself. It's like knowing where your threshold is, right? It's like we don't want to push ourselves so much that we like crumble, but we also need to push ourselves a little bit because that's how we grow, that's how we evolve, that's how we move forward in our lives. So that's kind of what I believe, how I feel about that. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I think sadness or grief or something like that can last a really long time. But when we do it in a way where we're still doing self care, like we're eating foods that are going to support our body, we're going to go out and do something like a walk, even if that feels like a little bit of a push that day. It's like, okay, I'm going to go out and walk around the block and be just a little bit in nature. I'm going to do these things that support myself.
Hmm.
I think when you do those things, then you can start to return to a life that may not be normal. It depends on what the grief is, but it can be like a more functional after situation for you. But when we don't, and you're just like, I didn't get off the couch, I've been eating junk food for 3 months, I live in a dark house, I don't go, I think
Mhm.
then it can turn into a chemical imbalance that could turn into a depressive issue where people do need help getting out a little bit.
Mhm.
So, and it's like you said, you need to know your threshold. And I think everyone's is different. And so it's like how much of this is me going through a grief period, and when have I let it become a little bit indulgent, and not indulgent in a way of I don't even know what I'm trying to say with that, but like
It's not serving
maybe
your
that's not,
highest good,
it's
is what
just
I
not
feel like you're
serving your
going. Yeah.
high, that's where I'm going. It's
Yeah.
not serving your
I'm here. I
highest
got
good.
you.
Yes, that's the word. So like it's just the grief can still be there. You can still be sad. But additionally, there's a time where you kind of need to take care of yourself and be like, okay, I'm still a person who's sad, but I'm going to be a person who's sad, who ate something that's going to serve my body a little bit better today,
Mhm.
who went for a walk outside, who did lunch with a friend, even though I wasn't sure if I was up to it, who let somebody come over and help me, even though I was maybe embarrassed about how the house looked, who when you
Yeah.
can do those things, then I think you can move through it instead of staying stuck in it. Which, like I said, I think a lot of times is a chemical thing that happens when we don't get enough sunlight, when we don't have foods that support us, when we don't have emotional connection with other people. So when we do those things, it can be hard. It can be hard when you're like going through a thing and you feel super sad and like lots of grief, to go, okay, today I'm going to do one thing that's a self-care thing that can start moving
Yeah.
through, because it's we don't want like emotions to be our personality for the rest of our lives. And whatever the grief situation is, whether it be a dog or a person that left your life or a loss of a job, I've seen have a big effect on people. Whatever
Mm-hmm.
the grief thing is, we don't want that to become who we are. We don't want the sad to overcome us forever. But when we do those self-care things, which I'm sure you're talking about in the Embody Bliss book, it's going to help us feel it, express it, and move through to. And it's, I think there's big, like big events in our lives too that you're never quite the same after. Like even if it's have a baby, hey, I'm gonna get to my pre-baby self. Cool, you'll never be back to, like there will be pieces of you that change forever. Like
Yeah.
even if you're one of those few people that's body looks the same on the outside, there's pieces of you that change forever at that point. I think we have those moments in our lives, and so it's like, what's the more healthy version of me after this event is kind of how I like to see it.
Yeah, and I feel like you can really come back to that like curiosity piece, right? Of like that being a student of ourselves. It's like, okay, like how do I feel now in this season or in this life stage, or like celebrating when you've like made a move that was maybe like really hard for you. So that day that you like would have rather stayed on the couch or would have rather done insert whatever thing here, but instead you like called the friend, or you let the friend come over, or you went outside and looked at the sun and put your feet in the grass. And it's like, yay me. Like, good for me. Pat yourself on the back. Like, there's nothing wrong with celebrating yourself, and like acknowledging how far you've come.
I agree. Okay, are you ready for a lightning round, Andrea?
Yeah, I'm so excited.
Yay! Okay, we're gonna play off of what we just talked about. What is a small, simple thing you patted yourself on the back about lately that you would be like, I don't know if other people would think this is cool, but that was a good thing for me that day.
Yeah, okay. So I have basically for my entire life wanted to be a morning person, and I never could be, never had it in me. This year I started getting up like an hour before my kids, making my bed, which I never did before, drinking my coffee in quiet, and that is like a big deal for me, and I celebrate myself most mornings when I get my butt out of bed.
That is fantastic. I have the same situation with that. It was like maybe 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I felt like I took back control of my mornings. And I'm like, yay
Hmm.
me, I did the thing. Okay, fill in the blank. I feel most powerful when.
Oh my gosh. This is really okay. I'm just gonna close my eyes and say what comes to me. I feel the most powerful when I am speaking up for myself and it is actually received in a positive way.
Love that. What makes a woman magnetic, in your opinion?
I think what makes a woman magnetic is somebody who is so committed to seeing other people rise. It's like the woman who will say your name in a room that you're not in, and the woman who is like committed to welcoming, including, and uplifting other people is just like I want to be around those women.
It's Christmas time. What do you want for Christmas this year?
What do I want for Christmas this year? I'm obsessed with Wicked. Obsessed with Wicked. And Cynthia Erivo launched a new book, and I want that book. It better be under my tree.
I'm like, whoever's listening, I will ditto the thing she just said. I'm obsessed with Wicked. I've seen it like live 4 times. I've
Oh,
seen the movie I don't know how many times. I'm
yep.
like a theater nerd, so I kind of grew up doing theater, and I've been a Wicked fan for a super long time. I'm a super old Wicked fan. Okay, guilty pleasure that's not guilty at all to you right now.
Reality TV. I don't think
Mm.
reality TV is guilty, and I watch every single season of Love is Blind and Love is Blind UK and Love Island and all of the things, like when I'm working during the day at home, and it just makes me feel great. And I don't care who says I shouldn't.
Nobody. Well, okay, lots of people, but additionally, who
Yeah.
are they to judge what I get to watch,
Oh,
right?
Vanderpump Rules. I can't forget Vanderpump Rules.
Love it. Okay, what's your final parting message to our audience? What do they need to know if they could come up away from this episode with one thing from you? The one thing
Mm.
you want them to know is.
Okay, you like hear me. Turn up the volume. You are the author of your own story, and it gets to be that simple. And if you don't like any of the stories, any of the chapters or paragraphs, you just get to erase them, throw them away, and rewrite a new one. It's not easy, but it is that simple.
Absolutely. Where can people find you, follow you? Where will they be able to buy the book? Give them all the deets.
I like to make it very simple. So I am the Balance Bliss everywhere. So Instagram is the.balance.bliss. My website is thebalancebliss.ca. My book will be available on there, on Amazon. But truthfully, if you just follow me on Instagram, that's how you will get connected to everything else in my world.
Awesome. So follow the.balance.bliss on Instagram. That's where you want to follow her for the most stuff. Her book's coming out in March. Was it March 11th? March
Yep, March
11th.
11th.
Keep watching out for buying the book March 11th. Follow her for all the cool Embody ideas and practices and everything you'll want to know about that. Thank you so much for being on here today, Andrea. And remember, you are the author of your story, so go write a ridiculous, radiant, rebellious chapter this week. And this has been Julie May and the Ridiculously You podcast. Remember to like, subscribe, share this with a friend, and we will talk to you guys next time.
Share the spark, take it higher. Hit subscribe, bring a friend. Let the wildness never end. Tap in, stay